UCLA football's current opening is a horrible job, but with the right hire and right support, it's absolutely fixable.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. We are talking about the idea that UCLA is a horrible job for their football program, but how is it fixable? Can it be? And the Big Ten released their conference schedules. We'll talk about how that helps UCLA with a more consistent schedule. And finally, just a debrief after the bye week. Can UCLA get their first win in 2025? Maybe only win against Northwestern. So to get things started, UCLA, you've probably seen it. It's been almost a big PR campaign to push how terrible the UCLA job is, right? I've heard from my own Locked On counterparts that the other fans of other institutions are like, dude, UCLA is a horrible job. Why would our assistant coaches, offensive coordinators go to UCLA? Maybe you watched and listened to Bruce Feldman discuss his article with The Athletic with Ira Gorawara helping out about on The Athletic UCLA's football program and how it's imploded, and it's been an institutional crisis for years prior to Deshaun Foster, despite that kind of accelerating its demise in these last few weeks. Or maybe you went and listened to Josh Pate and Colin Cowherd, and you're like, wait a minute. This is just a terrible job. It's a horrible thing. Well, let's tell you about the negative first, and then let's kind of bring it back to what it's going to take to bring it into a more positive light where I think UCLA could hopefully end up with the right guy. The negatives. Well, UCLA, we're the laughingstock of college football, the absolute laughingstock. You bring in Nico, the most polarizing figure as a player in all of college football. You watch any other show, you watch anything, you listen to anything. The guy who's talked about most is Nico. Do you know who's in the running for the Heisman? I don't. Do I care? Probably not, because it's not a UCLA Bruin, nor will it be anytime soon. It's about Nico. Now, there's a lot to blame when it comes to the negative PR, the bashing of the UCLA program, where there might have been some eyes looking at UCLA if Deshaun had been fired after 3 games, but his tenure at UCLA came to an immediate end. When you go for the big home run swing and you come up empty, questions will be asked. Now, there was already a lot of question marks with the Deshaun Foster hire, which leads to this Athletic article being posted and talked about. I've listened to what Bruce Feldman had to say with his research and reading it, of how it goes back to the Chip Kelly era, how they've been frustrated with the institution, and that the sources interviewed talked about how, yeah, Kelly got tired. He didn't recruit. Nobody had the engagement with Chip Kelly, but then the frustration with the institution, how it's with the public UC system, just seeing how long it took for UCLA to get accepted into the Big Ten from a UC Regents perspective, how there's nobody in the Rose Bowl, how, according to this article and hearing what Bruce Feldman had to say, Dante Moore, who got a pretty significant NIL opportunity at UCLA to play quarterback for, a quarter, if you will, a quarter in terms of schooling, a year for a season, and how he didn't even receive half his NIL package that he was supposed to have said in this article written by The Athletic. And it's just like, wow, if UCLA is promising big things, then it's not working. And then how Deshaun Foster's DRE, discipline, respect, enthusiasm, wasn't implemented. If you're looking at the next thing, and from what I've heard, Deshaun couldn't keep his word in terms of how to implement it. And that's what it takes, time as a head coach, which means then you flip it back to the administration, who has to go appeal to the UC Regents to get the move to the Big Ten, can't even hire the right coach in the first place, couldn't fire the coach at the time in Chip Kelly. Then you put UCLA into disaster. You put the tarps on the Rose Bowl, and that's where Martin Jarman has all the eyes looking at him. But then the hope comes with the new chancellor in Julio Frank, with what he did at Miami from an institutional leadership position, right? As the president, then he's now the UC chancellor, which is the most powerful, the UCLA chancellor, which is the most powerful position in terms of making moves and making something happen. Now, I saw Ben Bolcher of the LA Times post out a statement from Frank about how he believes in Martin Jarman's idea and ability to make the next head coaching hire, which kind of gave me a little shudder up my spine. I wasn't happy. If you got one chance, and the way it was handled last time, it didn't go well. How prior to Frank, UCLA's interim chancellor gave Jarmond an extension. And I'm like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense that the interim should have that power when UCLA's already had the new guy hired. We're just waiting for him to be, brought in officially as the chancellor. So it just seems like those decisions are just snowballing and turning this into something that's bad. The idea that you put it on national television, the Rose Bowl's not packed. UCLA, when it tries to keep its top assistants like Danton Lynn, can't do so. The debt, the opportunity is not the same as apparently the school across town. Everything is looking horrible at UCLA, from the athletic to even Colin Cowherd, who's going to continually laugh at us, who I believe is wrong. I thought he was wrong earlier. I was wrong. They're laughing. UCLA is the laughing stock. You can't just go get beat up by multiple Mountain West schools in back-to-back weeks and expect not to get, laughed at. And when you bring in Nico and say, hey, we got to close this all off, it just looks horrible. So all the work Deshaun had done in the offseason when it came to bringing in guys to make this team better, the guys in the positions where he needed to make next year's team better, they're all gone. The fans that we had during a mini rise in recent UCLA football history, of course, the peak, you go from the Donahue to the peak of the Toledo era. Yes, those were fun times, but it's been 20 to 25 years since, even Deshaun suited up. So now we're looking at modern times, just the peak mini era of Jim Moore. Those guys are 10 plus years now gone. Those fans are either turning elsewhere, old. How are you going to bring up this new generation of UCLA fans and not let them turn to USC, not let them turn to elsewhere or cheer for other Big Ten teams? And remember, hey, UCLA is a fun place to go to, yes, cheer for as a fan, and have an opportunity. UCLA has plenty of resources. Let's be real. The campus, much better than USC. The chancellor and Julio Frank. If his statement about Jarmond is just a PR front, that could be a blessing in disguise. If it's not, maybe he makes the final decision on the coach, or he's going to let, Martin Jarmond go through the coaching hiring process. And then maybe Frank might at some point have to be like, hey, this is the guy we're going with in the final moment or two when it comes to, hey, this is who we're going to hire. That's the hope. And that with the fundraising, the raising of funds, that UCLA can focus their attention to football, which could spread the money, could give more opportunities for NIL and everything else. Where if you just give a little bit more of rev share to UCLA football, which according to the Athletic, UCLA is trying to give close to $13 million of rev share to football, which in the Athletic article is saying that's pretty close to some SEC schools, some other big name Big Ten schools. So it's not like they're not trying, but they need to get the right guy. Who's that right guy? We can throw out a million opportunities, right? But then I heard Bruce Feldman talking to Mason Ireland and saying, it's not realistic that you want somebody like a big name, right? And I'll throw out the certain candidates over various episodes on this show in coming weeks, like I've already done with the Jonathan Smiths and the Tony Whites. But he did say Tony White's an opportune guy, but is UCLA tired of the alum? Even I posted that episode about Tony White. Anything that has to do with the UCLA alumni coaching this team is just going to get shot down immediately. It's like, no, we're getting rid of this idea. We're tired of it. But hey, the other perception of this being a terrible job is the fact that it's a rebuild. And it's not just a rebuild from, all right, a Kurt Cignetti can come in and turn this team around, but it's the idea of to engage the entire fan base, to get them entertained, to get people to the Rose Bowl, to fund the players. Because you see what Indiana's done. That's the UCLA dream. You come in out of nowhere, you turn into a playoff team, you got an arrogant, cocky, confident head coach, and all of a sudden they're on national television beating down another top 10 Big Ten team on the road. At home in Bloomington. Destroying Illinois, right? That's what UCLA wants. That's what they want. They want out of nowhere to have little teeny bits of effort to put it in there, find the Cignetti, and it turns around. Well, they kind of had a little bit with that Jim Moore, but that's a completely different era. Transfers, NIL, everything was a different era. USC was under probation, different time, and UCLA has the resources. They got a beautiful campus. The Rose Bowl is a great stadium, and it can be packed out. It's been proven before that at terrible times, even when the students aren't there, you can still have a full Rose Bowl with free tickets, fans, students locally that want to come in and cheer for UCLA. They got the right man in charge as the chancellor. Will he decide to make the final call on head coach? Will they have somebody who's energetic with coordinating experience, willing to stick through a rebuild, get the promised resources to turn this thing around? I believe so. But the optics are very bad. So if you're looking like, yes, at this moment, Can UCLA hire that guy away who might want that Florida job first, who might say, look at what Virginia Tech's doing. Look at what the resources, they have more fun. They have more energy. Maybe I'm closer to Virginia Tech. They want to be a Hokie. But no hokey pokey all around here. Let's get right to business. UCLA is gorgeous. Opportunities. It's Los Angeles. It's Pasadena when it comes to the actual college football playing days. But I think if Frank can help guide Jarmond into making the right decision, this can go somewhere. It can. But the optics are this is the worst job of a Power 4 in college football. That's what everybody's saying. And you can believe it. I just don't think it's unfixable. I think you can change the narrative. You just have to make the right steps. And I guess the whole point of this article by The Athletic, what everybody's saying is that they have made every single step in the wrong direction. One step forward, but 3 steps backwards, right? Oh, and I'm going this way. No, you're supposed to go this way. Everybody's going this way. Well, UCLA doesn't necessarily need to be different. They just need to care. If they care, then man, maybe they can dare a little bit. But they've just been failing to prepare, which has ended up in a lot of losses and just a lot of apathy, a lot of non-caring UCLA fans, which needs to change starting now. Next, we're talking about what you need to care about, Big Ten conference schedules. We know who they were supposed to play. We know where they were supposed to play. Now we know when and what the travel schedule looks like. So I'm going to tell you about that next and how a little more consistency to the schedule might appease Mick Cronin, even only in year 2. Maybe the Big Ten is listening to what UCLA has to say. Next on Locked On UCLA. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row in your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. Because they're not just hats. They're the same vintage styles the fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. Think about the glory days of UCLA football. You want to get back to those vibes, those styles, and wear it as well. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. So use the code LOCKEDON and get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. Again, grab your classic bar or retro circle design from UCLA using the code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount because they've got amazing UCLA gear. Just go to thegamecaps.com because legends wear the game. Well, just before the end of the weekend during UCLA's bye week, the Big Ten Conference finally released UCLA's Big Ten schedule. So this is what it looks like. As expected, UCLA was going to play in Oregon and Washington. Because remember, on the men's side, UCLA plays 20, while on the women's side, UCLA only plays 18. Right now, we're talking the men's schedule specifically. So UCLA in those 2 early December games in between Thanksgiving and then from mid-December. So you go from Cal to Gonzaga. These are the 2 games UCLA is going to play in true home and true road games. UCLA's first true road game of the year. Here's your question. You've probably already seen it. We're going to tell you again. December 3rd, when UCLA heads to Seattle, one of 2 trips the Bruins have to make to Seattle this year, although I think Cronin will take 2 plane flights up to the Pacific Northwest rather than going to the Northeast and seeing the Statue of Liberty 10 billion times. So the Bruins take on Washington on the road in December. Now, last year was a bit of a struggle to beat them in Seattle. They played them during that West Coast stretch. This year, UCLA gets Washington early, and they fly back because it's a Wednesday to Saturday and have a couple of days to prepare for Oregon and Dana Altman, which should always be a fascinating battle to take on the Oregon Ducks. And last year when UCLA beat Oregon, it kind of propelled them and earned them a tournament berth securing win. Now, I'm not sure how high rising the Huskies will be or, what the Ducks will look like. But if any of those teams have early games and they play well in the Thanksgiving tournaments, like Washington maybe could in their Thanksgiving stuff, I don't know their schedule at the top of my head, or Oregon, if they have another strong run like they did in last year's Players Era Festival tournament, then that could help UCLA's resume. Because this is what UCLA's schedule non-conference looks like. You've got 2 fascinating exhibitions against San Diego State on the road and a unique mid-major in Irvine. You've got a cupcake in Eastern Washington. You've got Pepperdine. Then you've got West Georgia before the season's first test on a Friday night in the Intuit Dome against Arizona. I guess maybe not, it hasn't released the time, but they play Arizona. You get Sac State, you get Presbyterian, and right before Thanksgiving, the Bruins take on Cal. And not even in Berkeley, they take them on in San Francisco. So you go to the Chase Center. Then you get Washington, Oregon. Those are a couple of games where if UCLA wants to be a contender in the Big Ten, earn that top 4 spot, earn that bye for what is supposed to now be an 18-team Big Ten tournament, where I think it's in Chicago this year, then you want to have a super bye, if you will. But you got to beat Washington and Oregon. Then you play Gonzaga, which would be UCLA's second trip in 10 days to Seattle, host ASU, play Cal Poly, play Riverside, and that's how you end it. UCLA will have about 10-ish, 11 days off if you include Christmas, New Year's Day. UCLA will have a nice little break, and in terms of actual competition, it'll be about 3 weeks in between when UCLA plays ASU at Pauley Pavilion before they play Iowa January 3rd. So looking from this schedule, there's a lot more stability, a lot more consistency. So last year when it felt like there's a game on a Monday and a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Friday and a Saturday and it's bouncing around every single day, and you're like, how can UCLA maintain a regular schedule, maintain a winter quarter academic standard at UCLA? How can we as fans even pay attention when they're playing on almost every day of the week but a Wednesday? Yeah, last year they played on almost every day of the week but a Wednesday. This year, some consistency. So in 2026, the Bruins will start it off in Iowa City. So they go to Iowa, and that place will be rocking. They will be loud, and they will want to knock off the Bruins. So what was last year a dominant win, a resurgent Bruins squad that took down the Hawkeyes, and that led to a strong revitalization in season and earned them a berth from beating Iowa. This time in a New Year Big Ten opener against a real Big Ten traditional opponent, that's tough. And then you're going to the Kohl Center. So that's a tough 1-2 combo. I would like to think UCLA could go take down Iowa early, take down Wisconsin, but those are two very tough matchups. I'm not thinking head-to-head and exactly X's and O's at this moment, but those are two tough places to play, and that's exactly where UCLA has to avoid some upsets. Is that easier said than done? Certainly. Wisconsin beat down the Bruins in the Big Ten tournament. They were a top 10, 15, 20 team last year. Now, it might be a little different, but we'll see how that goes. This is where UCLA has a rough turn when it comes to the scheduling. They go to Iowa, to Wisconsin, fly back. They host Maryland. UCLA hosts the Maryland Terrapins with Buzz Williams. Then they turn around from January 10th and flip it to their lone Wednesday conference game. So they get that extra day because they have to fly. Normally it's a Tuesday, Saturday, but this day is baked in for travel because the Bruins had to go back and forth so much to play Penn State and then go to Columbus. So because UCLA has to go fly to Penn State, then go to Ohio, they get an extra day of travel for one and an extra day of travel for the other. So they go play at home versus Maryland. We need to give a beat down back to Maryland, right? You play Penn State, who is certainly near the bottom of the Big Ten standings. Got to avoid an upset at the Bryce Jordan Center. But hey, it's a road game, a weird part of the schedule. That is where a travel loss could come into play. So I would think of all the teams to play, that's a break, but that's a travel loss waiting to happen. When you're going back and forth, that's exactly what UCLA wants to avoid. Midwest, back, and then going east. Okay, that's a unique scenario. Then they get back on the Saturday, Tuesday front where they play Ohio State, and the game that's going to be circled on everybody's schedules is January 2nd, or not January 20th, where they take on Purdue. The battle of the best backcourts in the Big Ten when it comes to, who's going to win Big Ten Player of the Year? Who could be the National Player of the Year? Who's going to be the All-American? Well, there's only be one, and you want Donovan Dent to sit there and dominate, all right? You want him to dominate the Purdue backcourt, front court, everything. So that's when UCLA will take on the Big Ten favorites, January 20th, a Tuesday. Now, I wish it was a Saturday, but a Tuesday, hopefully prime time, at a good time for UCLA fans to get there would be good. If it was a Saturday, would be even better because as much as traffic sucks, you could spend all day getting to UCLA. But a Tuesday, if they sneak that as a 6 p.m. tip, you hope the students fill up the arena at Pauley. All right. But after a lot of travel, that's where the Purdue game is snuck in. So that is where you go. Midwest, back west, and then you fly east, hit Columbus, and on the way back, you're going to pick up Purdue on the team plane, and you're going to play a super battle for Big Ten supremacy. All right. Now, obviously, sarcasm implied there, because this from January 20th till early February is when the Bruins will have their West Coast stretch. exactly the same time when UCLA had a similar stretch last year, winning all 7 games, beating USC, beating Washington on the road, beating Oregon, Wisconsin, Michigan State. That's when UCLA put in all their wins. So this is the same stretch UCLA has to do it against. This is Purdue, Northwestern at home, a Wednesday, January 28th game against Oregon. So they have a pair of Wednesday games, but generally it's a lot of Tuesday, Saturday games. A lot of Tuesdays and Saturdays. Then they play Indiana at home, so that'll be fascinating. Rutgers at home on a Tuesday, and then Washington. So after all those games, a lot of games mixed in there, one Wednesday, you go on the road, and this is the other game circled, all right? So tell your partners, tell everybody that on Valentine's Day, you got plans, all right? It is UCLA, Michigan. And the hope is, with that game being in Ann Arbor, you can have that game in the morning, and you can have processed your emotions. Here on Locked On UCLA with that post-game reaction will certainly be epic. The Adai Mara revenge game versus UCLA potentially. Maybe it's the Mick Cronin revenge game. And then by the time you can still go to dinner, or maybe you just have plans at home. And if you're a real champ, you've done weekend plans before Valentine's Day. But Valentine's Day, it's Michigan. And then Tuesday, UCLA goes to Michigan State. So the Ann Arbor East Lansing tango. Those 2 games are ones where UCLA is facing off last year's Big Ten champ, this year's Big Ten top 2 or 3 team in the country, and in terms of which teams will be the leaders in the Big Ten. So if UCLA can get that head-to-head against Michigan, if they can avoid a misstep against Michigan State, then I think the Bruins can be okay. But Michigan is going to be very tough to play. They're going to be very big. It'll be a horrible mismatch for UCLA inside. Michigan State, you're playing at the Breslin Center. That's easier said than done. I don't really know. I can't really focus, have the idea of what the Spartans will look like this year. We'll have Matt Sheehan on, of course, to discuss that game. But for now, that is the toughest road trip UCLA has this season. From no road games until early December, one until January 3rd. One true road game until January 3rd for UCLA. And then you're going to start off Iowa, Wisconsin, and then you get mid-February, and the Bruins play Michigan, Michigan State. And the toughest stretch for UCLA is this. Michigan State on the road, come back, host Illinois, and then you're going to play USC. So you go from emotional road game because of the ties with the Dimar and a Big Ten contender, Michigan State, who's pretty much been the class of the conference for a while, a strong Illinois team that was tough to play against in Champaign a year ago, and then you're playing your rival on a Tuesday night. I don't know if I like that, but they're playing their rival back home in Pauley Pavilion. Now, I think UCLA should be able to handle USC this year. Still, that's a rivalry game, and those games are never gimmies for UCLA. That is the toughest 4-game stretch. The Bruins, after they play USC, have a quick hop, skip, and a jump over to Minneapolis in Williams Arena to take on the Golden Gophers before returning home to take on Nebraska and USC at home and on the road. So 2 of the last 3 games for UCLA in this regular season are on the road before the Bruins go to the United Center and fly to Chicago, right? If you're UCLA, you'd rather have that be like, hey, at least stay in the Midwest and then, have that combination. But for now, UCLA will go to Minnesota, back to Nebraska, bus over to USC, which will be a packed environment in the regular season finale, which could all but determine what UCLA schedule is looking like. A little more consistency. I think there's 2 parts of the Big Ten where it's like, I don't really like that random trip to Minnesota being there at the end. I don't like that random trip for UCLA, just kind of like, hey, let's throw in Maryland at home randomly. Like, why can't we just have that easily baked in, have a long road trip? And I just don't understand it, why we can't figure it out. But I would think Tuesday, Saturday is a lot better. It's not like every day. There's not a lot of Monday games in this conference schedule, not like there were last year, or in terms of where you could play them. A couple Wednesdays, Tuesday, Saturday. So you can set your calendar up accordingly. A little easier for us as the fans, hopefully a little easier for the players, but travel is daunting and the road trips excruciatingly tough. All right, that's what we got. Next, we debriefed. We took a week off. We took a weekend off. No more UCLA football talk. Let's talk about how this is a chance for UCLA to get their win, maybe one and only in 2025 against Northwestern. Well, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And hey, maybe you like using FanDuel because, one, you can bet however you want to. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. And hey, maybe you're seeing a UCLA line you don't like, and you're like, wait, I knew this team was going to come in and make it closer. Or with UCLA being as bad as they've been recently, you're going to think, wait, that line might be so bad UCLA can actually cover. Well, think about it and use FanDuel, because if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is brought to you by Square, because your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certainly businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like a home. And whether it's a local spot and the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that you know and that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades, these are the places that bring people together. And when the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. That's why you should go check out Odyssey Games. Yes, go check out Odyssey Games. And if you want to dive into the community, go support the business, because support the business behind it, and you can support the community around it with Odyssey Games. So Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. We'll see you in the neighborhood. UCLA, man, that bye week felt so refreshing. I had to change up my look. Maybe you had to change up your routine. Maybe you needed a new lucky jersey, a new lucky hat. Maybe you need something different. Maybe you needed it. For me, I needed a clean look. Maybe you're just like, I just needed a break. So we took a break. We took 2 days off. We're like, all right. Even Tim Skipper came out and said the UCLA team went bowling. All right, they went bowling to figure out team bonding in the post-Deshaun Foster era with the UCLA interim head coach. All right, these are guys coaching for their job. Tim Skipper is looking for the next job. And I know from what I've heard, maybe some players aren't happy that he got the interim job instead of other more tenured coaches at UCLA. Maybe a Kaika Malloy, the recently departed UCLA defensive coordinator, could have been an opportune guy. But Skipper, who has experience as the interim guy, right? Sometimes you need people who need to thrive and lead in chaos in a short term. That's what they have in Skipper. So Skipper comes in trying to right the ship and, most importantly, get UCLA a win or two. Now, there's the shocking turnaround that could happen in season where we are absolutely surprised things click in the bye week, but they have to prove that to us. So I can't just go out and say they're going to win 6 to 7 games. This is going to be a turnaround. No. What UCLA is staring at is a team that struggled to beat UNLV, a team that got destroyed by New Mexico, a team that made Utah look like a powerful playoff contender. And Utah at home got destroyed in the fourth quarter by Texas Tech's second quarterback. Texas Tech dominated Utah, and Utah couldn't even run the ball. Wow, Utah ran just like UNLV could and New Mexico could, right through UCLA as if nobody was standing there. So the goal for the Bruins is when they take on Northwestern to get their lone and only win. And unfortunately, because I'm an idiot, on Big Ten Squad, if you watch that show, I think you should. It's very entertaining, whether I'm on it or not. I went on during the Northwestern win total and said, I think UCLA is going to beat them. And if they don't, I'm going to pour a bucket of cold water, ice water, whatever it is, on my head if they lose. So you'll have that to look forward to make me eat my words immensely come the weekend. So if you're like, all right, what's appointment television? I don't know if that'll be a clip showed on Big Ten Squad or if I'll show it on this show first. I don't know. Maybe it'll be both. UCLA better not make me look like a fool, because I don't want to be dumping cold water on my head. I mean, I guess it's muggy enough in Southern California that that'll feel amazing, but I don't want to do it for sounding like an idiot, which some of you probably think I am already. But UCLA needs to go out there as a team in a game where against a Big Ten program that is at the same, pretty similar academic, rigorous institution, one that is, changing things in their own right. UCLA, if they're a strong enough Big Ten contender, would wipe the floor with Northwestern. Now, Northwestern is close to a touchdown favorite against UCLA. And I'm pretty sure in the preseason, UCLA might have been favored. I'm not sure if that was the actual case, but if the Bruins were 2-1, and I was thinking, all right, if UCLA is, not 2-1 in this scenario, then this would be bad. If UCLA was 2-2, then this would be awful. Well, UCLA is at the worst as they possibly could heading into this bye week coming out of it. which is 0-3, new head coach, and everything for UCLA is just gone completely sideways football-wise. Now, they need to bring the good vibes because remember, in 2024, UCLA was able to flip it. Now, those are some older UCLA guys that were playing for Coach Foster, that new Coach Foster. Now this is Skipper in charge, who is a new guy, a new general leading a lot of new players who are bought for this season, for this quarter, for this semester, or not semester, but for this football season to play. And they still want to go make their own money. For Nico, he's got to go make his own dollars on this field, all right? That's kind of the individual mindset that might be coming in to UCLA, which hopefully doesn't lead to complacency. But after a recharge, and after some of these guys, some of which could have been redshirting, some of which were like, hey, let me stick it out, this is an opportunity for a win. And after I thought the New Mexico game was a game for a win, the UNLV game was one for a win, the UCLA chances for wins are few and far between. You host Maryland and you play at Northwestern. Those are the two games that are, in my mind, make or break for UCLA having a win or two this year or being winless until the SC game. And I hope that's just not the case. I really don't. I don't believe UCLA will go win this in 2025. But I've also watched the way that the talent on this team has played so far this year, and we're paying to watch that. They're getting paid to play, and that's unfortunate right now for a UCLA program that should look much better than it does in 2025. So they better win and beat Northwestern. The vibes are hopefully clicking. I think Skipper's the right guy to get some energy. Hopefully he's not too controlled by the administration as to what we're seeing when it comes to reopening the practice, reopening, how he's going to be more loquacious with the media than Deshaun Foster was. And we hope that there's some X's and O's because they're trying to change things defensively. They're wanting to hopefully get Tino Sanseri some good reps and showcase that his offense does work because we see Indiana's works just fine. Can that be executed at UCLA with a lot less O-line talent? And can they play with some pride on their chest and say, we're wearing the UCLA jersey, not the name on the back, for the jersey and for the four letters on the front? Because by gosh, by golly, we know these players are mostly going to be gone by January. Nico's probably going to be looking for a new home. All these coaches are looking for new places. But for the journey they've been through, for just the few months they've been together in some cases, like Tim Skipper, put something together that's respectable to the UCLA fans, respectful to the brand, everything. And hopefully it won't look so much of a dumpster fire in 2026 when we see some new Big Ten opponents, we have a different schedule, and maybe that can lead to success. But Northwestern is one that UCLA must win if they want to make sure they can bank on a win or two and maybe steal one or two down the line. Because if they don't win this one, there are winnable games, but the ones I'm circling are Maryland and Northwestern. Those are the ones right now. And until proven otherwise, they got to go out and prove they can compete because they just haven't even competed yet. They haven't competed in the first quarter, in the first half against some of these teams. We'll know right away if this team has some heart and some character with just a new change in leadership. If not, it could be the most embarrassing season of all time. But let's just hope that's not the case. Get a win or two, suffer through the embarrassment, take our lumps, and survive what this season has been and get into 2026 as quickly as possible, right? Because we got a lot of coaches to talk about. I'm going to have quite a few guests discussing their coaches and why they've been offered up as UCLA potential candidates, and should they even be hired or are they even a fit at UCLA? All those episodes are coming up. If you think you've heard a candidate, we'll have that guy on the show, and we'll discuss who could be the next guy. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.